Imagine you ride into the Wild West to buy a piece of land, but instead, an Apache chief gives you a shocking choice. Marry my veiled daughter, or leave forever. Everyone whispers she's the ugliest woman in the tribe, but when the veil is finally lifted, what Maverick sees changes his life forever. Stay until the end, because this unbelievable Wild West story has a twist you'll never forget. Subscribe for more Wild West romance tales. Apache Chief Black Wolf stared intently at Maverick. Will you marry my daughter, or will you leave here forever? Maverick, the cowboy who had arrived only an hour earlier looking to buy land, felt the world stop. Marriage. He only wanted a piece of land by the river. I don't understand, Maverick managed to say, slowly removing his hat. I came to do business, not to look for a wife. Wife, an imposing man with braided silver hair and scars that told stories of battles, crossed his arms over his chest. The lands are not for sale to strangers. But if you join our family, if you become one of us, then the lands will be yours. Maverick looked around the Apache camp. He had arrived there after 3 days of riding through the desert. In town they had warned him, don't go there. Those lands belong to the Apaches. No one returns. But he didn't listen to warnings. He had spent 5 years looking for a place to settle, working on other people's ranches, sleeping under the stars without a home. And now this chief was offering him exactly what he was looking for, but with an impossible condition. Your daughter, Maverick said carefully. Can I meet her first? Black Wolf shook his head. His dark eyes shone with something Maverick couldn't decipher. She does not speak to strangers. She always wears a veil. She hides her face. Why? Because she is ugly? Asked the chief emotionlessly. The ugliest in the whole tribe. That is why no one wants her. That is why she wears the veil day and night. The Apache warriors surrounding Maverick lowered their gaze uncomfortably. The topic was clearly delicate. Some women working nearby whispered among themselves. Maverick felt a knot in his stomach. He had come looking for land, not a wife, and definitely not a wife he hadn't even seen. With all due respect, Chief, Maverick began. I only came to buy land. I am not looking to get married. Then leave now, Black Wolf interrupted with a firm voice, and do not return. My warriors will ensure you keep your distance. It was a barely veiled threat. Maverick looked at the 3 warriors who had escorted him there. Their spears gleamed under the desert sun. He was in no position to negotiate. Why are you doing this? Asked Maverick, trying to understand. Why offer this to me? Black Wolf sighed, and for the first time, Maverick saw something different in those hard eyes. Weariness perhaps, or paternal pain. Because my daughter deserves a chance. She has lived 5 years hidden, rejected, called names by people who don't even know her. The chief paused. And because you are the first man in years who has come here without fear, with honesty in his eyes. That says something about you. Maverick gripped his hat tightly in his hands. This decision would change his life forever. He thought about the years wandering aimlessly, the cold nights wondering if he would ever have something of his own. When will the ceremony be? He finally asked. A murmur ran through the camp. The warriors exchanged surprised glances. Black Wolf raised an eyebrow. In 3 days, the chief replied. The ceremony will be at sunset. Then I accept. The words left Maverick's mouth before he could fully think them through, but it was too late to take them back. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, friends, and write in the comments where you are listening from. It makes our day very happy. The warriors began talking among themselves in Apache. Some seemed impressed, others confused. One of the elders shook his head negatively, as if Maverick had just made a terrible mistake. Very well, said Black Wolf slowly. We will give you a teepee to stay in for these 3 days. Prepare yourself, cowboy. Your life is about to change. As a young warrior guided him toward a small teepee on the edge of the camp, Maverick took the opportunity to observe the place. Leather teepees decorated with ancient symbols, bonfires drawing lines of smoke into the sky, children playing among the rocks, and then he saw her. A solitary figure standing by a distant teepee was completely covered with a white veil that fell from her head to the ground. Nothing of her could be seen, not her face, nor her hands, nor even her exact shape beneath all that fabric. Silver bird, she did not move, but Maverick felt her gaze on him. Through that veil, she was watching him, studying him, perhaps judging him. Maverick stopped for a moment, looking at her from a distance. He wanted to say something, raise his hand in greeting, show that he was not afraid, but the words wouldn't come out. The warrior gently pushed him. "Come, your teepee is this way." Maverick continued walking, but turned his head once more toward the figure in the white veil. She remained there, motionless as a statue, watching him. At that moment, a question pierced his mind like lightning. What was under that veil? Was she really as ugly as they said? Or was there something more to this story? The sun began its descent toward the mountains, dyeing the desert orange and red. In 3 days, that veil would be lifted. In 3 days, Maverick would discover the truth. He entered his assigned teepee and sat on the furs that served as a bed. He touched the bag of coins on his belt. He had come to buy land with money. Instead, he would buy it with a marriage to a woman he had never seen. A woman everyone called the ugliest in the tribe. A woman wrapped in mystery and rejection. Maverick closed his eyes and took a deep breath. There was no turning back. He had given his word, and a man of honor does not break his word. But deep in his chest he felt something strange. It wasn't exactly fear. It was something different. It was anticipation. What secret did that white veil hide? In 3 days he would know. Destiny had begun to move. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The news spread like wildfire through the town. Did you hear? The new cowboy is going to marry Laish. Which Apache? Silverbird, Chief Black Wolf's daughter, the one who wears the veil. Maverick had decided to return to town for supplies before the ceremony. He needed clean clothes, some food, perhaps a gift for his future wife. But as soon as he dismounted in front of the general store, he felt the stares. The store owner, a fat man named Thomas, looked at him with wide eyes. "Is it true what they say? Are you going to marry Black Wolf's daughter?" "It's true," Maverick replied while checking some shirts on the counter. Thomas whistled softly. "You're crazy, boy. Completely crazy." "Why do you say that?" "Because no one has seen that woman in years. She wears that veil day and night. They say her face is horrible. That's why she hides." Maverick paid for the shirts without responding. He wasn't going to argue with someone who didn't even know Silverbird. Outside the store, a group of men had gathered. Among them was Sam, a cowboy Maverick had worked with the previous year on a ranch near the border. Sam had a bottle in his hand, and a red face. "Maverick," shouted Sam, "come here, friend. We need to talk." Maverick approached, tying his purchases to his horse. "Hello, Sam. I didn't know you were in this town. I arrived a month ago. I work at Morrison Ranch." Sam grabbed his arm. "I heard what you're going to do. Tell me it's a lie." "It's not a lie. You're crazy." Sam shook his head. "Do you know what people say about that woman? They say all the men who get close to her end up with bad luck." "They are just stories," Maverick replied, freeing himself from Sam's grip. "Stories," intervened another man from the group. 3 years ago, a merchant tried to do business with the Apaches. He got too close to that woman. A week later his cart overturned and he lost all his merchandise. "That's a coincidence," said Maverick. "And what about the hunter who accidentally saw her near the river?" added a third. "The next day he broke his leg. He couldn't work for months." Maverick looked at them all. Superstitious men, scared by shadows. "I don't believe in curses." Sam moved closer, lowering his voice. "Look, friend, I know you. You're a good guy. You deserve better than this. Marrying a woman you haven't even seen, a woman whose own father says is ugly. The lands he will give me are good," Maverick explained. "It's my chance to have something of my own." "There are other lands, other opportunities," Sam insisted. "You don't have to do this. We can look for work together elsewhere. I know ranches that need good cowboys." For a moment Maverick hesitated. He looked around the town, the wooden houses, the people watching him with pity or mockery, the clear sky over the distant mountains. Was he making a mistake? But then he remembered something. He remembered the solitary figure with the white veil watching from the shadows. He remembered Black Wolf's words, asterisk, "My daughter deserves a chance." And he remembered something more important. He remembered all the years wandering without purpose, without a place to belong. "I have already given my word," he said finally. "The ceremony is in 2 days." Sam let out a sigh of frustration. "So, there is nothing I can say to make you change your mind?" "No." The men dispersed, shaking their heads in disapproval. Only Sam remained. "Listen," said Sam, his voice now more serious. "If you are really going to do this, at least be careful. The Apaches are proud people. They do not forgive easily if you offend their traditions. I know. And that woman, whether she is as ugly as they say, or not, treat her well anyway. No one deserves to be rejected all their life. Those words surprised Maverick. Coming from Sam, who moments before had tried to dissuade him, they sounded sincere. I will, Maverick promised. Sam patted him on the shoulder. Good luck, friend. You're going to need it. When Sam left, Maverick was left alone on the dusty street. The sun was beginning to set, and the shadows lengthened. From a window, he saw an older woman watching him, shaking her head sadly, as if she had already written him off as lost. Maverick mounted his horse and began the return journey to the Apache camp. The path wound between red rocks and thorny cacti. As he rode, he thought about everything he had heard, the curses, the warnings, the superstitions, but there was something no one mentioned. No one asked what Silverbird felt. No one wondered what it was like to live hidden behind a veil, rejected by everyone, called ugly by people who didn't even know her. The sun touched the mountains. When Maverick arrived at the camp, the bonfires were already lit, and the smell of food filled the air. Children played among the teepees, their laughter clear and pure. And there, in the same place as the day before, was the figure in the white veil, Silverbird, motionless, silent, watching. Maverick dismounted and walked slowly toward her. He stopped a few meters away, respecting her space. Hello, he said simply. She did not respond, nor did she move. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, Maverick continued. And that's okay. I just wanted you to know that in 2 days we will be married, and I promise to treat you with respect. The veil moved slightly with the wind. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded her head. It was the first communication between them. Small, silent, but significant. Maverick returned to his teepee with a strange sensation in his chest. In 2 days, that veil would be lifted, and whatever he found underneath, there was no turning back. His destiny was sealed. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The night before the ceremony, the Apache camp buzzed with activity. The women prepared special food. The men tuned drums. The children ran excitedly from teepee to teepee. A wedding was an important event, although this one was different. Maverick couldn't sleep. He had tried to close his eyes for hours, but his mind kept spinning. Tomorrow he would marry a woman he had never seen. Tomorrow his life would change forever. He decided to go for a walk. The desert night was cold and clear. The stars shone like diamonds on black velvet. The camp bonfires had reduced to red embers that pulsed softly. He headed toward where the horses were. The tribe had magnificent animals. Wild mustangs tamed with patience. Pinto horses with perfect spots. Strong and fast mares. They were the pride of the tribe, more valuable than gold. Maverick leaned on the makeshift fence and watched the animals sleep. His own horse was there, mixed with the others. At least his old companion seemed to have adapted well. Then he heard something, a crunch, soft, almost imperceptible. The kind of sound someone makes when trying to move silently but fails. Maverick tensed, straining his ear. There it was again. It came from the back of the corral, where the darkness was deepest. He moved without making noise, sticking to the shadows. His years as a cowboy had taught him to move like the animals he cared for. Slow, patient, silent. Then he saw them. 3 figures crouching by the fence were working on the ropes that kept the horses enclosed. They wore wide-brimmed hats and bandanas covering their faces. Thieves. Maverick's heart began to beat faster. He had to act fast, but also smart. If he shouted to alert the camp, the thieves might escape in the confusion. But if he tried to stop them alone, it was 3 against 1. He made a decision. He crouched down and picked up stones from the ground, small ones, the perfect size. Then he moved in a wide arc, positioning himself behind the thieves. "Good evening, gentlemen," he said loudly. The 3 men turned abruptly. Maverick could see their surprised eyes above the bandanas. "Who the hell are you?" grunted one of them. "Someone who has a problem with thieves," Maverick replied calmly. The largest of the 3 stepped forward. "Get out of here, cowboy. This isn't your problem. Actually, it is. Those horses belong to my future family." The thieves exchanged glances. Then the big one laughed. "Your future family? Are you marrying an Indian?" "Yes," said Maverick simply. "And I'm not going to let you steal at my wedding." "Then you're dumber than I thought." said the thief, lunging forward. Maverick was ready. He dodged the first blow and threw one of his stones. It hit the thief in the forehead, making him stagger. The second thief ran toward him, but Maverick spun and hit him with his elbow in the stomach. The man doubled over with a groan. The third one was smarter. He stayed back, evaluating. He was thinner than the others, faster probably. 2 against 1 now, said the thin thief. You don't like that math, do you? But the big one had already recovered. Furious, he charged like a bull. Maverick waited until the last second and stepped aside. The thief crashed directly into his thin partner, and both fell to the ground in a tangle of arms and legs. The second thief, the one who had received the elbow strike, tried to get up. Maverick didn't give him time. He pushed him back to the ground and pulled the bandana from his face. Guards, Maverick finally shouted. Thieves in the corral. The teepees began to light up. Confused voices filled the night. Apache warriors came running out, some half asleep, others already with spears in hand. The 3 thieves tried to escape, but it was too late. The warriors surrounded them in seconds. The big one tried to resist, but 3 spears pointing at his throat made him reconsider. Black Wolf arrived moments later with a blanket over his shoulders. He assessed the situation quickly. What happened here? Maverick pointed to the 3 men on the ground. They were trying to steal the horses. I found them cutting the corral ropes. The chief looked at the thieves, then at Maverick, then back at the thieves. His expression was unreadable. Did you stop them alone? Yes. One of the warriors, a young man with braided hair, checked the corral ropes. It's true, Chief, they are cut. These men came to steal. Black Wolf approached Maverick. He studied him silently for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he placed a hand on his shoulder. You saved our horses. You saved the pride of our tribe. I only did what was right, Maverick replied. Many men would not have risked their lives for horses that are not yet theirs, said the chief. His voice had a new tone of respect. But you did. The warriors around them murmured among themselves. Maverick caught some words in Apache. Brave, strong, worthy. One of the tribal elders approached. His face was covered in deep wrinkles, and his eyes had seen many moons. He spoke in Apache to Black Wolf, who nodded. Wise Eagle says the spirits guided you tonight, the chief translated. He says you are worthy of joining our family. Maverick didn't know what to say. He hadn't done anything extraordinary. He had only protected what was right to protect. Among the crowd that had gathered, he saw a familiar figure. The white veil glowed in the torchlight. Silver Bird was there, watching. And although he couldn't see her face, Maverick felt something different in her posture. She no longer seemed so rigid, so distant. The warriors took the thieves away, who would be escorted out of Apache territory, with a clear warning, never return. The camp slowly returned to calm, but something had changed. As Maverick walked back to his teepee, the warriors passing by nodded with respect. The children looked at him with admiration. The women smiled. He was no longer just the stranger coming to marry the chief's rejected daughter. Now he was the man who had protected the tribe. Before entering his teepee, Maverick looked once more toward where Silver Bird had been, but she had gone like a ghost in the night. Tomorrow would be the ceremony. Tomorrow the veil would be lifted. But tonight Maverick had gained something more valuable than land. He had gained respect. The sunset sun painted the desert orange and purple as the ceremony began. Maverick stood in the center of the camp, wearing a new shirt he had bought in town. His heart beat so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. The entire tribe had gathered around the ceremonial bonfire. The drums began to sound, a constant deep rhythm that seemed to emerge from the earth itself. The women sang in Apache, their voices rising toward the sky like birds. Black Wolf stood before Maverick, dressed in his best ceremonial attire. Eagle feathers adorned his hair, and sacred paints decorated his face. Today, the chief said loudly so everyone could hear, a stranger becomes family, an outsider becomes a brother. Maverick has demonstrated courage. He has demonstrated honor. He is worthy of joining us. The warriors struck their spears against the ground in approval. The sound rumbled like thunder. Then she appeared. Silver Bird walked slowly among the teepees, escorted by 2 elderly women. The white veil covered every part of her, from head to toe. She moved with grace, but Maverick could feel her nervousness in every step. The camp fell silent. Only the drums continued their steady rhythm. Silverbird stopped in front of Maverick, barely a meter away. It was the first time they were so close. He could see how the veil moved slightly with her breathing. Black Wolf raised his hands to the sky. The spirits watch us. The sun is witness. The earth is witness. He paused, his eyes moving between Maverick and his daughter. May this union bring blessings to both. One of the elders approached with a steaming bowl. Inside were sacred herbs that filled the air with a sweet, earthy aroma. She passed the smoke around Maverick, then around Silverbird. Another elder approached Maverick and tied a red rope around his wrist. Then she did the same with Silverbird, connecting them symbolically. What is united here cannot be separated, said Black Wolf solemnly. The drums increased their rhythm. The women sang louder. The ceremonial fire crackled and sparked, sending sparks into the darkening sky. Then the moment arrived. Black Wolf looked at his daughter. For the first time since Maverick had known him, he saw real emotion on the chief's face. His eyes shone, not with hardness, but with something softer. Paternal love, perhaps, or maybe relief. The time has come, said the chief, his voice now softer. The veil must be lifted. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the drums stopped. 200 people held their breath. Black Wolf approached his daughter and gently placed his hands on the edges of the veil. Maverick felt his stomach drop. What would he see? A deformed woman, horrible scars. Why had everyone in the tribe rejected her? The chief began to lift the veil slowly. First, bare, delicate feet appeared. Then legs covered by a beautifully decorated buckskin dress. Then small, fine hands. The veil rose higher and higher. Maverick saw Silverbird's neck, thin and elegant, then her chin, and then the veil fell completely. Maverick forgot how to breathe. Silverbird was absolutely beautiful. She wasn't just pretty, she was extraordinary. She had high, delicate cheekbones, perfectly shaped lips, a straight and elegant nose. But what truly captivated Maverick were her eyes. They were different. One was a deep brown, warm like the earth after rain. The other was a light blue, bright like the summer sky. Eyes of two different colors. Maverick had heard of this, but he had never seen it. Heterochromia, doctors called it. Some people are born like this, with eyes of different colors. The camp erupted in murmurs. Some warriors looked confused. The women whispered among themselves. The children pointed with curiosity. But Maverick couldn't look away. Not in horror, but in awe. Silverbird looked directly at him, and in those disparate eyes, there was fear. Fear of being rejected once again. Fear of seeing disgust on Maverick's face. But Maverick didn't feel disgust. He felt something completely different. "You are beautiful," he said softly, only for her. Silverbird's eyes widened in surprise. For a moment she seemed not to believe what she had heard. "Your eyes are..." Maverick searched for the right words. "They are unique, like sunrise and sunset together." A tear rolled down Silverbird's cheek, then another, but they were not tears of sadness. Black Wolf watched the scene with a serious expression. Then he spoke, his voice resonating over the silent camp. "My daughter was born with this difference. In our tribe, some saw it as a curse. They said the spirits were confused, that they didn't know what color to give her eyes. They said it would bring bad luck." The chief paused, his gaze sweeping the crowd. "I called her ugly. I hid her behind a veil, but I didn't do it because she was ugly." His voice cracked slightly. "I did it to protect her, because I knew men from outside would come. Men who would see her beauty and want to take her for the wrong reasons. Men who would not see her heart, only her face." The camp was completely silent. Now I needed to find a man who would agree to marry her without knowing how she looked. A man who saw beyond appearance. A man of honor. Black Wolf looked directly at Maverick, and I found him. Maverick felt the weight of those words. Everything had been a test. The ultimatum, the warnings about her ugliness, the veil, all designed to find someone who would accept Silverbird for who she was, not for how she looked. Silverbird took a step toward Maverick. Her lips trembled slightly as she spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft like the wind through the trees. "Do my eyes really not bother you?" Maverick took her hand gently. "Your eyes are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my life." She smiled. It was a shy, fragile smile, as if she wasn't used to smiling. But it lit up her face like the sun. The drums began to sound again, this time with a joyful rhythm. The women began to sing celebration songs. The children ran around the bonfire laughing and shouting. Black Wolf raised his hands. The ceremony is complete. Maverick and Silverbird are now husband and wife. The camp erupted in celebration. The celebration continued until late into the night. The drums didn't stop sounding. The women danced around the fire, and the men shared stories of home and bravery. But Maverick could barely concentrate on the party. His mind was still processing everything that had happened. Silverbird was sitting beside him, watching the celebration with a small smile. She no longer wore the veil, and her long black hair fell freely over her shoulders. Every time someone passed nearby, she instinctively lowered her gaze, as if she still wanted to hide. "You don't have to hide anymore," Maverick told her softly. She looked at him with those extraordinary eyes. "It's hard. For 5 years the veil was my protection, my world." "Why 5 years exactly?" Silverbird sighed. "When I turned 15, men started coming to the camp. Merchants, hunters, explorers. They all looked at me strangely. My father noticed what was happening. What was happening? They wanted to take me away. One of them offered 20 horses for me, another offered gold. They didn't care who I was, they just wanted to possess me as if I were a beautiful object." Her voice became firmer. "My father got angry. He said no man would have me if he only saw my appearance." Maverick was beginning to understand Black Wolf's wisdom. "So he invented the story that you were ugly." "Yes. He made me wear the veil and spread rumors. The chief's daughter is the ugliest in the tribe." The men stopped coming, stopped looking at me. Silverbird gently touched her own face. "But over time I started to believe the lies. I started to think that maybe that my different eyes were something bad." "Your eyes are not something bad," Maverick said firmly. "They are special." She smiled sadly. "My mother said the same. She died 3 years ago. She said I was a gift from the spirits, that I had one foot in the world of day and the other in the world of night, that I could see things others couldn't." "And can you?" Silverbird looked directly at him. "I can see people's hearts, and your heart is good, Maverick. I knew it from the first moment you arrived." At that instant, an elderly woman approached them. It was the same one who had performed part of the ceremony. Her eyes shone with ancient wisdom. "Allow me to speak with you," she said in Spanish. Her accent was marked but understandable. Maverick and Silverbird nodded. The elder sat down with difficulty, her bones creaking. "I am Moonflower. I am the healer of this tribe and the guardian of our stories." "It is an honor to meet you," said Maverick. Moonflower looked at Silverbird with affection. "This girl is special. When she was born with 2 colored eyes, some said it was a bad omen, but I knew the truth." "What truth?" asked Maverick. 2 colored eyes are a mark of the chosen. In the ancient stories of our people, only great spiritual leaders were born like this. They could see the past with one eye, and the future with the other. They could walk between 2 worlds. Silverbird looked surprised. "You never told me this, grandmother." "Because your father asked me to. He wanted to protect you from those who would seek to use you for your gifts. There are bad people who believe that someone with your eyes has power, and would want to capture you for that." Maverick felt a chill. That's why the chief was so careful. "Exactly." Moonflower nodded. "Black Wolf is a wise father. He knew you needed a man who would accept you without knowing about your beauty or your special gifts. A man who chose you only for honor and for heart." The elder looked at Maverick intensely. "And you, Cowboy, passed the test when you agreed to marry without seeing her face. When you protected our horses without expecting a reward, you demonstrated your true character." Maverick felt humble. "I only did what was right." "That is exactly what makes a true man," replied Moonflower. She stood up slowly. "Now I will tell you something else. Your paths were destined to cross. The spirits showed it to me in a dream 3 moons ago. I saw a man in a hat arriving from the east, and I saw how his arrival would bring change and healing." With those mysterious words, the elder moved away into the darkness, leaving Maverick and Silverbird alone again. The silence between them was comfortable. Now, the music and laughter of the celebration continued around them, but they seemed to be in their own bubble of tranquility. "Are you afraid?" asked Silverbird suddenly. "Afraid of what?" "Of being married to someone different, someone with strange gifts?" Maverick thought carefully before answering. "I have spent my life feeling different, without family, without a home, always looking for a place to belong. So no, I am not afraid of someone different. In fact, I think that is why we understand each other." Silverbird took his hand. Her fingers were soft but strong. "My father will give you the lands he promised. They are good lands near the river. We can build a house there." "A house?" Maverick felt warmth in his chest. "Would you want to live there?" "Not in the camp with your tribe. I want to live where I can be myself, without a veil, without hiding." Her disparate eyes shone in the firelight. "And I want to be with someone who sees me for who I really am." At that moment, Black Wolf approached, no longer wearing his usual serious expression. Instead, there was something that could be called happiness. "Maverick," said the chief, sitting down next to them, "I want to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" "For giving my daughter something I couldn't give her for 5 years. Freedom. Freedom to be herself." Black Wolf looked at Silverbird with tenderness. "I thought I was protecting her with the veil and the lies, but in reality, I was only caging a bird that needed to fly." Silverbird hugged her father. "You did what you believed was right, father, and in the end you brought me the right man." Black Wolf smiled, a genuine and warm smile. "Tomorrow I will show you the lands. They are yours now, Maverick, and with them my blessing." The chief stood up and returned to the celebration, leaving them alone again. Maverick looked up at the night sky. The stars shone intensely, with no moon to compete with their light. He thought about the path that had brought him here. Years of wandering, of loneliness, of searching. And now, finally, he had found more than land. He had found a home, he had found a family, he had found someone who saw him for who he really was, just as he saw her. Silverbird rested her head on his shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking that I came looking for land," Maverick answered honestly. "But I found a treasure." She looked up at him, her different eyes capturing the light of the fire and the stars. "Me too," she whispered. And in that moment, while the celebration continued, and the desert enveloped them in its eternal embrace, Maverick knew he had made the right decision. The Apache Chief's ultimatum had not been a curse. It had been the beginning of something beautiful.